And where we will get started today is with the race that the Reds are in. It's really the race that they were positioned to be in from the beginning of the season. No, it's not the playoff race, as much as Steve and myself and probably you thought they would be. The race to be the most interesting 500 ball club. In fact, the Reds need to go 12-6 in their final 18 games to reach management's ultimate goal. After winning the final game of the series in Queens, these hopes are still alive for the Reds because, look, all they got to do, they beat the Braves tonight. And then, in the final 6 series of the season, all they got to do is lose only one game, each of those series. The final 6. They only have to split with Cleveland. They got to go 2 out of 3 against Pittsburgh. They could do that. 2 out of 3 against Chicago. They could do that. 2 out of 3 against St. Louis. Come on. 2 out of 3 against Atlanta. Might be a little bit more tough, but hey, they're hurt. 2 out of 3 against Minnesota. A little bit of a toss-up there. But that's what I'm talking about here. The Reds are in this thing, man. Look, this team was set up at the beginning of the season to be the most interesting 500 ball club in Major League Baseball. Yes, look, I know. Might have really jumped ahead of ourselves here thinking that they were going to make the playoffs because they had a clear outfield deficiency, but it could be solved with young players improving. They had a clear starting pitching deficiency, but that could be solved by young players improving. They had a clear lineup deficiency as far as consistency goes, but hey, that could be solved, say it with me, by young players improving. And they also had some clear injury issues with key players, but hey, that could be solved at a miracle, I think, back then, because they really didn't make any moves to cover up those injuries. But look, with the roster that the Reds had on opening day, if you catch lightning in a bottle, you're a playoff team. But look, we were wrong to expect that, obviously, because if you don't catch lightning in a bottle, then you're good enough to stay relevant long enough to keep people happy enough. That's what this team was set up for. They didn't spend money on the deficiencies that we saw early on in the offseason. There were some key pieces that the Reds needed. And we were talking about them in October. Whenever we were watching the playoffs, we were watching other teams, and we're saying, this is what the Reds need next year. Because it seems like they have the makings of a core. Now, quite frankly, let's look at some of these points here, because the clear outfield deficiency never got solved. In fact, it got worse, because TJ Friedl remained an injury concern all year long. Will Benson, not only did he not hit lefties, he stopped hitting righties. Jake Fraley lost power for myriads of reasons. There's a lot of reasons. Look, all these guys are human. They go through a lot of stuff. Jake Fraley went through a lot of stuff this year that none of us fully comprehend. Hopefully he is coming out on the other side of that, though, on the baseball field. Far less important than a lot of the stuff he was dealing with, but it's good to see some of the power return a little bit. And Spencer Steer was called into the infield more times than not because of all of the injuries early on. So you had to play some outfielders like Stuart Fairchild, and we saw some other players that, okay, they work in situations. They work in, bite-sized samples, but I don't know that they're going to be here long term. That's really what the Reds set themselves up with in the outfield. Now think about starting pitching for a minute. This worked out because they went and they got a guy who had to have his arm reattached, and Frankie Montas hadn't pitched in over a year. Well, he pitched 1 inning in 2023. And they were going to tab him to be the opening day starter. He was going to go out every 5th day. He was going to be a key addition to this rotation. Sometimes he was and sometimes he wasn't. Meanwhile, you were asking a lot of your young rotation who started to turn a corner last season in 2023, but didn't quite get there. Hunter Green got there. And for the first 2 months of the season, Nick Lodolo got there. But then Nick Lodolo had some issues, had to regrip his main pitch. Now he still has question marks. Andrew Abbott seems like he might be turning that corner as well. Currently dealing with injuries. Graham Ashcraft might be a bullpen guy. Hopefully Brandon Williamson can be that guy, although he's not. I don't think he can answer questions. The only question that he is answering currently, and he is answering it well, is that he is healthy. But look, this is part of the thing. They came into the season with a clear deficiency in starting pitching, and their gamble kind of paid off for the most part. The biggest problem was it paid off without the lineup paying off, without the outfield paying off, and quite frankly, without the defense paying off either. Although I think they punted that. I don't think they entered this season thinking anything of their own fielding. They're like, it's going to figure itself out along the way. But this is what I'm looking at. And tell me if I'm wrong. I would love to hear that in the comments section here. If you're watching on YouTube, or hit me up on X at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. Tell me if I'm wrong, but look, I look at this roster, and back in March, I was buying in, man. I thought that this stuff could happen because I felt as though I was sold very well on this happening. But hindsight's 20/20, and hindsight's telling me they thought they were a 500 ball club on opening day. With some help and some lightning in a bottle, they could be a playoff team. But you know how much lightning in a bottle costs? Not near as much as a consistent middle-of-the-order, right-handed, power-hitting outfielder. Not near as much as a legitimate, top-of-the-line starting pitcher. And not near as much as players who can replace guys on the injured list. Because a lot of it's just the luck of the draw, and the luck did not fall the Reds' way this year. But look, betting on luck, it's a bad bet, man. Hopefully, we do not do the same thing for 2025, because there are clear deficiencies for this team moving into next season. We'll be talking a lot about that all throughout the offseason, so make sure you keep it with us all the way. But look, the Reds still have a shot at their ultimate goal. They can still hit 500. They go 12-6 between now and the end of the year. We're cooking with gas, partner. We're at 81-81, and the most interesting team, which we'll do this here later this week and compare the Cincinnati Reds to other 500 ball clubs, and I think you'll agree they're far more interesting. But hey, what does Santiago Espinal, Julian Aguiar, Tony Santillan, Emilio Pagan, Justin Wilson, Buck Farmer, and Alexis Diaz all have in common? Find out next.